RTHK Radio 3.
You're listening to Brunch with me, Noreen Mayer, on this Thursday morning. Now, in the next 20 minutes or so, we're diving into the psychology behind New Year's resolutions and how to set realistic and achievable goals. And joining us to talk about this, I'm really delighted to be chatting with clinical psychologist Dr. Zaidi. Morning to you, Dr. Zaidi. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy New Year.
Morning, Noreen, and Happy New Year to you too.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you back on the program. And we are live this morning on Facebook, Noreen Mayer on RTHK Radio 3. So let's kick things off. Perhaps let's talk about the psychological factors that motivate people to set New Year's resolutions.
Well, look, it's a ending and a beginning, so it's a good time for us to be thinking about what we've left behind and what we're going to carry forward. So it's a drive for making resolutions, which is motivated by this punctuation in time, which is, the change of the number of the year. It activates hope and expectations for what we hope to be achieved going forward. And it does come with a sense of renewal. It comes with what we want to improve or change. But it can also leave that blank slate feeling. Can it be inspiring, but we can also get carried away within all of that as well. So I think it's just a good time for reflection. From me personally, it really it's a forced time where you take time to reflect on where you've been, what you've achieved, what you don't want to be going and doing again because it didn't work, and then being able to take that forward. And I wish we had more punctuated time like that every quarter of the year. Actually, that'd be good.
Q2, the goals. And I think I love that word reflection. You're right. I think it is that punctuation in time that gives you that compulsion to set these goals. I do think sometimes people are over ambitious with their goals. And I know I've been certainly guilty of that. What are the sort of common goals that you've come across in sort of your career? What do people tell you? What are some common New Year's resolutions that you've come across?
Well, look, I mean, a lot of people focus on improving food and diet. So I'm gonna have a dry January. I'm sure you've heard of that. I'm gonna try and be eating healthily and try to lose X number of pounds or kgs, and that remains the top. The other one that is, better fitness, exercise. I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to go to the gym regularly. I'm going to, be able to do this, maybe 5 times a week. Going from 0 to 5 is difficult. And the other one that it has been a new one for this year has definitely been that I want to stop doom scrolling. That has been said to me so many times. That that people are obviously just spending a lot of time just scrolling on the phone, and they want to be able to stop that.
Exactly.
So yeah, those are the 3 main ones that come to mind. But the new one, as I said, is the doom scrolling.
Yeah, the scrolling. I'm nodding because I'm thinking I'll add that to my list. When you see clients, are they often sort of renewed in the new year? They feel that sort of sense of, right, I'm going to achieve my goals, and they feel more clear-headed. Do you find that at the beginning of the year, or is it not really the case?
It's varied. Some people do feel like that, energized that, here's as I said, the blank slate, and now I can start to look forward to. So that really works well for some. Others are so deflated by the end of the year that they just want some time out. Yeah. And, Christmas and New Year can be quite busy time
and a difficult time for some people too.
Yeah. So it is important to. So it's varied. It's neither either or, but there are also shades of grey within that. But there are a lot of people who are able to kind of say, okay, fine, I can leave that behind and I can move forward. Others are just kind of trying to come out of what's happened, or how difficult or how challenging as you say, the month of December has been for them, and then to be able to work with that. As well. Yeah.
Going back to a point that you made earlier about scrolling and social media, I do think it's It's a dangerous place because it does sort of put on that pressure. You see what other people are doing, what they're achieving throughout the year. And I know at the end of the year, people are like, looking back at the year, I've done X, Y, and Z. And sometimes people can feel like, oh gosh, I haven't achieved all of that, and can make you feel a bit, I guess there's that societal pressure also. Have you seen that sort of end of year, what I've achieved and going forward? What do people tell you?
That's exactly what it is. It can create a sense of failure when you're comparing yourself to others, and social media is absolutely, a prime uh, uh, breeding ground for that. I'm just thinking of a word that I could say, which is less, but that's exactly what it does. It makes you, it can create a sense of not enough, constantly not enough. And it doesn't make you feel good. No, because the sense of comparison does, in the end, go towards I'm not enough, or we haven't done enough, or I haven't achieved enough, or I haven't been productive enough. And in a society in Hong Kong, which is driven by a sense of achievement, a sense of you're constantly being productive, because that's what I see in my work a lot of the time. People are driven, uh, and it's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it gets in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and creating that sense of not enough. X, Y,
Absolutely.
Z, fill in the blank. Yeah.
Yeah, I must say, I must be a bit of a different breed. When I see my friends sort of having achieved X, Y, and Z, I feel so happy for them, and I feel so glad I'm not in that position because I was thinking how tired they must be to like have done all of that. And it can, I mean, like you said, it can be a breeding ground for that, but it can also make you appreciate exactly what you have and the things that you have. And sometimes I think for other people, it can also be a sense of motivator as well. If you see other people have achieved all of that, and you're in a position to want to achieve certain things or perhaps also tick things off your bucket list, it can also serve as a bit of a motivating space for you to push your life forward. So I think it can be a double-edged sword. Social media can be that breeding ground, but it can also be a kick up the backside if should you want to sort of achieve those things. But yeah, I do think that feelings of failure and disappointment can often be a sort of background for social media. What about this sort of over effects of overscheduling and burnout? How can we avoid that in the coming year, Dr. Zaidi?
So I think, when we are setting, or when we're reflecting, and we are thinking about what is it that we want to change, what is it that we want to be able to focus more on in the coming year, whether it's health, whether it's fitness, whether it's relationship with technology, right? Then being able to set what we call the SMART goals, breaking it down into what is it that's realistic, what is it that's achievable, what is it that I'm going to do different today. And even if I'm on the social media for 5 minutes less, or if I've gone for a walk today and I stepped outside in the sunshine, or I was able to kind of think about what it is that I want to consume today, and I won't be, I'm going to go for the healthier option. So it's a daily choice that you're making that is going to set you up for being consistent with it, rather than putting in all of this and the 5 or 10 things that you want to achieve and not being able to achieve any of that, which is where you're going to be overscheduling. As I said, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. Well, if you haven't been to the gym at all in the last year, then
Good luck
that's
with that. It's not gonna happen.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's not going to
I mean,
happen.
yeah, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but it ain't gonna happen. Maybe for some people it will happen, but I think for most of us, if you're going from 0 to 5 times, 6 times a week, it
Yeah.
may not happen. And I love the fact that you said it's about setting realistic goals. And I also think the other thing is checking in regularly. I mean, no, every month, checking in that to make sure you are being able to tick off things, or maybe every week, how, and revisiting those goals. So if you aren't able to go 5 times a week and able to go 3 times a week, then perhaps readjusting those goals, but also setting realistic adjustments. Also, I mean, if you're checking your weight every day and seeing the scales not moving, that's not a realistic sort of check either. Check maybe at the end of the month to see if the weight has shifted, or whatever it is, savings or whatever it is that you've set your goals to. One thing that we touched on is that overscheduling can lead to burnout. Have you ever been in a position where you've had to recheck your own goals, or maybe even chat to the people that, your clients, for example, and saying you've got to readjust your schedule. You've got to readjust your goals to avoid the burnout because you're feeling stressed because of overscheduling.
100%. You'll be surprised how many of us in the mental health field kind of are absolutely guilty of of overscheduling, over the expectations that we have of ourselves is can be quite unkind. Is one way of putting it. So yes, when we speak through supervision or peer supervision, or when you're talking to colleagues about, and it was interesting. I was speaking to somebody at the end of last week, and she was saying to me what I'd heard her say exactly the year before. And I just reminded her, I said, but I think I've heard that before.
It's
That's
deja
exactly.
vu.
She said, I want to be able to do less of and less of and less of. I'm like, okay, right. So how are you going to make that happen? Because you've done exactly the same thing in 2024. So yes, I mean,
But the
we're
awareness is there. I suppose that's a good start because a lot of times we want to schedule more, we want to achieve more. So it's good that at least the awareness is there. But the $1 million question is how.
agreed. So part of it is, and this is what we said, that I said, I'm actually going to write this down and I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And we are going to regularly meet for this, just for this, right? That how are you doing it? What are you changing? And even if it is a 15-minute conversation, that's what you do. With regards to the patients, you will be surprised how many people in 2024 that I have seen for burnout, for toxic stress, and people having to step away and take a break from work, actually, to be able to work through this. And I do think it's a prolonged exposure to what we went through in Hong Kong that really had an impact. However, we are coming out of it now, so that's a good thing. That's what I'm looking forward to in 2025. That I'm hopeful that we are kind of at the tail end of the impact of the past 5 years, of the stress that we've felt and the uncertainty and the cumulative effect of post COVID. Hopefully coming out of that. So yes, it is the overscheduling. It's the it's the unrealistic expectations that we set for ourselves that get in the way, that lead to the burnout. Because we even if you're kind of scheduling downtime and you don't do that,
Honor it, yeah.
right? Or if you put it in the calendar and it doesn't happen, whether it's downtime, whether it is going for a walk, whether it is, those are the things, small things every day that you need to prioritize that are going to be preventing the burnout. And that's what I've been working with so many people. Or that's a small example, but you can expand it to various different facets of life and work. And it is a perfectionism that drives this, that everything has to be perfect. And I always say, because I'm so old now, as I said, 500 days I've been here, right? That it's the expectation and the culture that we live in, which is that you've got to deliver 110%. Well, percentages out of 100,
Yeah.
number one. And number two, if you are able to consistently be between 70 to 80, that's good enough. Whatever that number is, as long as you're consistently able to achieve the tasks, your to-do list, which is realistic, that's fine. That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know someone who has a post-it note on their table says done is better than perfect. And sometimes good enough is good enough. And I think you're right. And I think, if you fail to meet those resolutions, it can sort of lead to demotivation and maybe those inadequate feelings. And then that also is a cycle. Then you don't end up doing sticking to your New Year's resolution. So what advice do you have for people sort of maintaining the motivation throughout the year?
Being realistic with it. And if you're not, as you said, you know, the flexibility around your goals. So if you're not able to go 5 times a week and you're able to do 3, that's better than what you were doing last week.
Yes.
And if you're able to do 2 the following week, you've got to look back and say, but I also had X, Y, and Z, and I was able to do that, rather than focusing on what I wasn't able to do to what I was able to do and what got in the way. Was it my own inner critic? What was it that got in the way of me being able to do that? And can I change that? If I can, then that's what I'm going to work on to be able to change, so that I can maintain consistency in what I want to focus on for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And shifting your own mindset and perspective. I remember, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a hardcore gym person, but I like going to the gym. I think exercising is, I see it as a hack. It's the shortest hack for me to get a good night's sleep and for me to improve on my mental health. And I feel a bit better. I don't go for long. Maybe I do move around for 20 minutes a day. But it's so funny. I remember in my 20s, I also joined, many years ago, I joined the gym. And if I didn't go for 1 month, then I'd just abandon it completely and be like, well, I'm not a gym person. Something shifted, and in the last few months, I would be like, well, you know what? It's a new day. If I didn't go yesterday, that's fine. I'll treat it as a write off. I was too busy, and I'll go again tomorrow. And I treat it as like a. And I find that this mindset really helped. And I'm not sure if it'll help our listeners out there, but shifting your perspective, it's okay if you didn't stick to the healthy eating. You don't have to abandon it entirely and think, well, that's it. But I know some people, it happens. For example, I know colleagues who perhaps want to quit smoking. And then if they have a cigarette because they were stressed, they think, oh, that's it. And then they start smoking all over again. And
Agreed. So what you're describing, what we call in cognitive behavior therapy, the all or nothing or black
oh,
and
yeah,
white thinking, right?
that's a much better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what you're saying, you've nailed it on the head, actually. That's exactly how you maintain your goals. That's exactly how you do it, because you're able to look at it on a daily basis and say, you're not defining that I'm either going to be 100% or I'm going to do nothing. I am going to try the shades of gray, which is life, and I'm going to try and stick to that and be able to be flexible with that, what fits in my time and life. And I think that's exactly how we will maintain what we've set out to do.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Zaidi, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Remind our listeners once again, how can we find out more about you and your work? Are you on social media? Have you got a website?
Yes, we do. So as you know, as you said, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a team of clinical psychologists, and we're based in Central. My website is mindandlife.com. And before we go, I just want to be able to ask all of us to think about one thing, which is, what is it that I came into 2024 with that I want to leave behind? And what I learned from 2024 about myself that I want to take forward to 2025. So that's my thought
I love
that I put.
that. I love that. What is it from 2024 that we want to leave behind? And what is it that we've learned and that we want to carry it forward? I love that thought. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Dr. Zaidi. This has been really, really insightful. And to our listeners, I think, as we heard from the conversation, setting the New Year's resolution is only the beginning. It's not all or nothing. It's the journey. It's the small steps that lead to the lasting change. And Happy New Year to you, Dr. Zaidi. And I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.